You've worked on lots of famous comics like Rick and Morty, The Amazing World of Gumball, etc. Could you take me back to where you started?
Yeah, sure. So I've always drawn as a kid since I was very little, and I always loved drawing. I always liked drawing cartoons. But like when you're a kid, doing what you like as a kid doesn't necessarily translate to having a job as an adult, right?
Yeah.
But I was so stubborn that I was like, I want to do this for a job. So I just kept drawing. I just kept making up my own characters. And I went to university, but you don't need to go to university, but it's important that it gives you the freedom to draw. And it was around about that time where I started doing my own comics mainly about myself. I was doing like autobiographical comics, and then I started doing more independent comics, black and white, sort of romance comics, slice of life stuff. And that was with a publisher called Oni Press on a book called Love the Way You Love. And skip forward a few more years, Oni Press got the license to do Rick and Morty comics. But because we'd already worked together on Love the Way You Love, they asked me if I wanted to draw Rick and Morty. And I was like, yes, please. This sounds amazing.
Yes, please.
And that was about 10 years ago. So it's been a real long stretch of drawing Rick and Morty. Yeah.
So you say you design your own comics. Would
Yes.
you say you prefer like the illustrating part of it, or would you like to do more with designing, world building, that kind of stuff?
Drawing is a lot easier for me, which for a lot of people is strange because drawing is really difficult, right? It's a lot of work. You can write a scene like Spider-Man swings across New York City and then punches a rhino in the face, and that will take you 30 seconds to write that, but to draw it might take you an entire day. Like just drawing the New York background, that's a lot of windows, that's a lot of buildings. So I much prefer doing the drawing side of it, but I like having the freedom to tell my own stories. When you work with a big publisher or a big license with like Warner Brothers for Rick and Morty, there's certain restrictions that you have to like abide by and stuff, and that can be good and bad, right? It gives you a sort of like restriction of what you can do. You don't get too far ahead of yourself. But there's nothing quite like the thrill of inventing your own character and putting them in a world that you've created. It's such a important part of comics.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And you said you took a long time to draw. Do you still draw traditionally, or are you giving into the digital?
I've been digital for about, maybe 5-6 years now. But before I was drawing on paper, so A3 paper traditionally, and I look back at that artwork and I like it because there's a wonkiness to it. There's a slight, I don't want to say imperfection, but like you can't undo on paper. So the digital is really good. It speeds you up. It's great for sending your files in. You don't have to scan any paper in. But I do find that I'm just tapping undo. So I need to watch myself. For example, if I'm drawing Morty's a bunch of circles. And drawing a circle like neatly, if you don't draw it right, like you just undo, and it's just you're in this sort of like, I don't know, this rhythm of drawing a circle, not quite right, undo, drawing another circle, not quite right, undo. But on paper you don't have that, so you're sort of like, oh, I didn't get that right, I'm gonna move on. So I prefer drawing digital, but I like the imperfection and the sort of danger element of drawing on paper, because you can undo, but you have to get your Tipp-Ex pen or your white out and then dab it, or do it on Photoshop, and it's not as easy as doing it with the tap, but
because characters like Morty or Rick are kind of exaggerated characters, very expressive. How do you translate that while drawing?
Yeah, I always try and push it. I try and push the shapes. So with the Rick and Morty mouth, it's really interesting. Like they have it's almost shaped like a hot dog, kind of.
Yeah, definitely.
But like when Rick burps, like drawing the waviness but making his mouth absolutely massive. You can kind of get away with that in comics, whereas you can't do it so much in animation. Like animation has a real set look to the characters because they're on model. The files are locked in, but like with a comic, like I can draw Rick being exaggerating panel by panel. So I like to push the shapes. I like to make it interesting. I don't want everyone to have the same expression on every panel because it just looks really boring on the page. Even if it's just sort of like, I don't know, them rolling their eyes, or their eyes are half closed, or their menacing look or something. Rick's probably a lot easier to do with that stuff because he's got the eyebrow, the unibrow eyebrow.
Yeah.
You can play around with like more sort of like shapes, whereas Morty, bless him, is just circles.
He is just circles.
He's just circles. But I like that juxtaposition. So Rick's more like, he's got more interesting shapes. So the triangle for the hair, you know, the unibrow. And I like that juxtaposed with Morty, who's basic circles.
Yeah.
But he's the one who's always in danger, you know.
Yeah.
So I like that. I can exaggerate Morty, but that's maybe with like the environment, what's happening to him rather than himself.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So I was looking through your site, and all your work you've done, I noticed a lot of fantasy comics.
Oh, okay.
Could you tell me, what is your attraction to this genre?
I don't have a huge affection for it, but I like the playfulness of it. So I think the only thing I don't really like about fantasy is that a lot of it is just set in the woods. Right?
Set in the woods.
And like, you got to draw a lot of trees, and I still haven't figured out how to draw a good tree. I think buildings are slightly easier for me. I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, I like, the same as sci-fi, like, you can do anything, right? Like, you can kind of do whatever your imagination lets you do, or what you can think of. And I like the fantasy tropes, you know, warrior, wizard, sort of the D&D sort of archetype, right? But then you can apply that to most genre fiction, you know, you get hero, you get resistance, etc. So yeah, I don't have a huge amount of like fantasy love, but I like sort of like picking and choosing from different genres, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really nice thing about comics, that you can't really replace the movies. You can just draw anything. Your imagination goes so far.
That's a good and a bad thing, right? Because if you get a really big idea, you're like, oh, that's really cool, but then how do you draw it?
How do you draw it?
How do you draw it? And it's going to take a lot of time because, man, comics. It's not just one drawing. It's like 6 drawings a page. And you're like, oh, this is going to be like thousands of drawings by the end of it. I like these characters. Yeah.
Could I ask you, do you have a favorite project you've worked on so far?
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 answers. There's a comic that I did called Chloe Noonan Monster Hunter, which is my own comic that I made.
Oh yeah, I saw.
So she's like a grumpy like teenager who doesn't have any superpowers, but she's like the local monster hunter for the town.
Yeah.
The idea I got was from watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I know that show.
Buffy's like old now, and I forget Buffy's old, and people might not have seen
No,
it.
we still know her. We still know her.
Yeah. But I was watching it, and there's an episode, it's in most episodes, but where they find out where they need to go, right? Buffy and her 2 friends, Xander and Willow, they're somewhere else, they're not in Sunnydale, they're not in the library, and they're not at the Bronze, and they find out where they need to go to essentially find the monster and fight them. And in the next scene, they turn up.
Yeah.
And none of them are out of breath. Now, Buffy has superpowers, but her friends don't. And I was like, well, how do they get there?
How do they do it?
How do they get across town? I'm like, are they getting the bus? Like,
in the bus.
Like, wait around for the bus to
They
come and
took
pick
public
them up?
transport.
Is someone having to like, call for a lift? And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to do that side of it. So I made Chloe like just a normal person. It's like a part-time job, and she has to wait for the bus. So it's
I love
less
that.
about hunting monsters. It's more about her having to do with public transport.
I love that.
The last bus is at like 10 o'clock. I've got to get going. So that was a comic that I made essentially because I wanted to draw monsters and fight scenes.
Yeah.
And I've always said that like that's probably the most happiest I've ever been drawing.
Oh, yeah.
There's freedom, I can experiment, I was kind of getting ideas down.
That makes a lot of sense.
And on the flip side, probably Rick and Morty, just because it was the job that changed my life. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it sounds so weird to say that, like a guy who draws people Rick, whatever.
No.
But like, it was a job that gave me stable income. I did it for 10 years. Like, I drawn thousands of pages for Rick and Morty, hundreds of issues. Like, that was the job that essentially allowed me to be a full-time artist, which a lot of people don't get to do. So I don't take that lightly, even though it is still a licensed property. I still felt like it was mine in a way. I was like the main guy for so long.
Was it a big change going to Rick and Morty?
Yeah, it was a bit sad, right? I tried to get my indie stuff going, but like, I think back then I didn't really know what to do with it. I didn't have the idea of how to make it like a big book. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I tried this, I kind of failed. I don't think I did fail, like it's all part of the grand plan. Like you do your comics to sort of like better the next comic, right? You learn something and for each project. The only thing I didn't like about Rick and Morty was maybe like the deadlines. The deadlines were quite brutal at one point.
How strict are you talking about?
What's that? Sorry.
How strict are you talking?
Oh, like 5 weeks.
5 weeks. Okay.
5 weeks to do an issue, and but I would often have to do the next issue whilst I was doing the previous issue. So, say for example, I penciled issue 1, then that would be sent off for approvals. I then have to start issue 2, and then I get the approvals back for issue 1. I then ink issue 1 whilst I was still doing issue 2. So there's a real sort of like almost like a relay race. It's a real weird way of doing it. So yeah, it was just a lot of work as well. Like Rick and Morty is very inventive, right? So if I had a writer say, "Oh, I'm going to do 31 panels to this page," I'm like, "You're out of your mind." Like, you know, like that's a huge amount of work. But it just Rick and Morty lent itself to that sort of craziness, that sort of over the top. So yeah, it was a tremendous amount of work. But you kind of learn how to cut corners as well. Like you don't need to show a background in every panel. Like you can kind of like make your life a little bit easier with that stuff, and then still try and make it engaging for the audience.
Did you get any say in world building or design? Or?
I wrote a lot of my stuff as well. Like I think I was hired to do very short comics to begin with. They were written by someone else, but then they stopped working on the book, and I was then asked like, "Oh, could you write and draw your own like 4-page comics?" And 4 pages is not a lot of work, not a lot of real estate to work with. But I sort of thrived in that sort of short period. It was like, here's the idea, we're going to just have fun with it for 4 pages and then get out. Very quick. And I think because a lot of British comics are like that. Stuff like 2000 AD, the Beano, the Dandy, they are essentially anthologies made up of like short stories, 2 to 8 pages, maybe less. So I was sort of trained with that sort of stuff through the books I was reading as a kid. So yeah, I wrote and drew a wrestling Rick and Morty comic recently as well. But I mean, that was 4 issues. 4 issues. It was a real learning experience, but I found it quite easy because I sort of worked on Rick and Morty for so long. I kind of knew the patterns and not the tropes, but like I kind of knew like set up and build and then conclusion. So the only tough thing was trying to mix the writing, doing the writing at the same time as doing the drawing. That was just like another thing in my head where I was like, "Oh, I'm really into the writing process, but now I need to stop and do the drawing process."
It's 2 different things.
And then likewise, I've got to stop drawing, which I love drawing, and now I need to go back to writing, which I find really difficult.
I get that. I have one last question for you. For any beginners or starters in the comic world, do you have any advice?
Yeah, just draw. Which sounds really basic, but so I do some teaching. I say to my students, like, your first 1,000 pages, drawings, picture books, spreads, whatever, like the first 1,000 whatever is going to be bad, right? You just need to get that work out of your system. But if you draw every day, then you kind of learn what you're doing wrong. So like, you do a drawing and your brain goes, "That's not right." But your hand doesn't know how to fix it yet because you haven't had the practice. So you need to sort of like train your hand to essentially fix mistakes. So it's draw every day. And if you want to make comics, then you've got to start making comics. Like they're a lot of work, so just start small with like a 1-page comic, and then go on to like a 4-page comic, and an 8-page comic. But also finish the comic. It's really important to finish the work. Yeah, if it's not right, it doesn't matter. You don't need to show everyone. It doesn't need to go on Instagram. You can just go, "Okay, I finished that. I'm going to do something else." On to the next. So it's a lot of work, but yeah, just try and have fun. Especially if you're like a young kid as well. Like I think we're so used to like showing our work now online, whereas like it's okay to draw for enjoyment. It doesn't have to go onto social media. It doesn't have to be shown anywhere. You can just go like, "Oh, this drawing is for me. I really enjoyed it." Right. So yeah, draw for fun.
So it's just draw, and then
unfortunately,
and finish your projects.
Finish your projects. I mean, there's loads of books on YouTube, so like watching stuff. I mean, sometimes just watching someone draw on YouTube is like you can kind of see how they hold the pen and move it around. It's so weird, but like just that's really inspiring and helpful.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
right.